Hello everybody, welcome to The Verdict here on Racing TV, and this week we are going to concentrate on the November meeting from Cheltenham, and we'll also go to Punchestown on Sunday for the Grade 1 Morgiana hurdle. Got lots of eye catchers for you, and we're going to analyse 6 races that took place over the weekend. There are more eye catchers to be found on the website. Please do go to racingtv.com and look at Harry Allwood's piece. He's picked out a number of horses who could well be worth following over the next few weeks. But it's to Cheltenham where we go on Friday to kick things off here on The Verdict. The 1:45 contest was a handicap chase. It was over 2 miles. The going pretty quick for the time of year. Good to soft in places. That was reflected by the times. And Stolen Silver was the 5-2 favourite. Magic Saint 7-2. Editeur du Gite was 4-1. And 5-1 Capo Toy took a little bit of support in from 6s. Also money for Bathiva for the Fergal O'Brien team. It was Editeur du Gite who won the day for Gary Moore. Niall Houlihan was the man on board, and he did so from the front. Let's take it from coming down the hill. We're about 4 furlongs out here, maybe a little less, and if we just pick up the first 2, this will tell you something about the pace of this race. There's Editeur du Gite, and there is the runner-up, which was Stolen Silver. Bundoran not far behind on the inside in 3rd place there. You had to be prominent. This race was quite steadily run. I think it was very well judged by Niall Houlihan out in front. The finishing speed percentage, 102.85%. So they finished the race off up the hill a little bit quicker through the final 4 furlongs than they ran the rest of the race. That tells you all you need to know about how steady it was early on, and Editeur du Gite was able to dominate, and he was bouncing off this decent ground, and he jumped particularly well too. I can give you examples of the steady pace. If we look at furlongs 9, 10 and 11, 15.71, 15.08 and 15.45. That's pretty steady out front. They then picked up down the hill, about where we joined the footage, and then they sprinted up the hill. Stolen Silver, a grey horse just switched to the inside, comes home very well. Editeur du Gite is 3-4 clear, jumping the last, but he wavers and he wanders, and Stolen Silver comes home strongly. In fact, he fires the fastest final furlong of 15.24, and he almost gets back up. Although one gets the impression that Editeur du Gite just found a little bit more. He looked a bit lonely out in front. He started to wander to his right, but when Niall Houlihan really got hold of him, he just found a bit extra to hold on from Stolen Silver, who I think is a horse for your Racing TV tracker. Stolen Silver. I think this was a very good effort from him. I know he was well positioned the way the race went, but he came home strongly, and his best form has come with a little bit more cut in the ground. So he's a horse to keep an eye on when the rain comes, and perhaps maybe he wants a little bit further as well, for he was staying on very strongly here. They in turn were a long way clear of Bundoran, back in 3rd place. A nice winner for Gary Moore, who's got his horses in tremendous form at the moment, and Gary said afterwards that possibly another crack at Aintree next year in the spring would be where they'd want to go with Editeur du Gite. That sharp track on decent ground will definitely suit him, and all of his wins in his career have come on quite fast ground by jumping terms, and I think he wants to stay away from winter soft ground. But he's an improving horse. He won here off 140, and there's going to be plenty more to come from him. Let's sum this up then. What did we learn from this particular contest on Friday at Cheltenham? Well, first up, the winner was nicely rated in front. It was a good ride from Niall Houlihan, and the pace picked up 5 furlongs out. Prior to that, the 9th, 10th and 11th furlongs pretty steady, but they really picked up thereafter. 15.71, 15.08, 15.45 for those 3 mid-race furlongs. Well done, Niall Houlihan. Good ride from him. He's getting a lot of rides now. He's had 8 winners now from 64 rides this year, and one would suspect that he's going to get plenty more for Gary Moore over the next few weeks or so. How was the race run? It was steadily run early doors. They did pick up down the hill, and thereafter they sprinted in the closing stages. Percentage, 102.85%. So they were not finishing tired by any stretch of the imagination. Stolen Silver. Improved effort, I thought. Improved on his previous run. He was only beaten, half a length or so in the end, and he fired the fastest final furlong, 15.24, staying on very strongly as Editeur du Gite just emptied a little bit in the closing stages. It wasn't a particularly strong handicap in terms of the depth of it, but the winner is most progressive, and the runner-up is going to win a decent prize soon and has to be followed. And with that in mind, go to the Racing TV website and stick Stolen Silver in your tracker. Perhaps looking for him to win a race over perhaps a bit further, certainly with a little bit more cut in the ground. I think that suits him. 2 of his 3 wins have come on soft ground. He's definitely one to be with when he gets those conditions, hopefully next time. It's not often that a 2-runner novice chase features on the verdict, but this race has to, really, given the drama that unfolded in the closing stages. 2.5 miles was the trip for these novices. My Drogo chasing debut, 9-4 on favourite for the Skeltons. Gin on Lime, 7-4 for Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore. So let's have a look at this dramatic and perhaps, for some, controversial contest. Gin on Lime made the running, Rachel Blackmore setting an even pace out in front, a pace that picked up 5 furlongs out. 9th, 10th and 11th furlongs were pretty steady, 15.71, 15.08, 15.45, but then it picked up and My Drogo came up sides Gin on Lime down the hill, and then he got racing, and his 17th furlong was 12.84 seconds, and just as he got racing, then he came down. He's motoring now. He jumps the fence fine, actually, but he just seems to not get the landing gear out and stumbles, and that's the end of Harry Skelton, who charges after My Drogo. And then Rachel Blackmore, a brilliant sit on Gin on Lime, and gets this horse rolling again, motivates Gin on Lime into a canter, and then saunters home to land the prize for the de Bromhead team. Gin on Lime looked pretty tired afterwards. Lots of water was thrown over the horse as soon as pulling up, but was okay, and Henry de Bromhead reported the horse to be fine the following day. Of course, it's somewhat controversial what Rachel did. Should she have actually continued? Should she have motivated the horse into a canter to go and win the race? Well, she probably should have done, really, if you think about it. There's only 2 runners. If there'd been loads of runners and it happened in mid-race, she would have pulled the horse up. I've no doubt about that. But it was an amazing sit from her. And her judgment as a horsewoman was that Gin on Lime was okay to continue. She takes a moment here once the horse gets to its feet, and then she says, right, come on then, let's trot away. And I'm sure if she'd felt that the horse at that stage was lame or anything, she wouldn't have continued. But she had to make a split-second judgment. That's what she did, and she went on and landed the prize for the owners and for the Bromhead team. And I think in the circumstances, she did all that she could. Some would say that perhaps she should have just not ridden the horse out and said, right, I'm pulling up here. But I'm pretty sure that, being a very good horsewoman, she knew what was going on, and she knew that the horse was all right. And it's a very difficult judgment to make, isn't it, in the heat of battle. Thought Harry Skelton perhaps thought he was going to remount here. Look, I'm not quite sure where he charged off after My Drogo, but of course he can't do that under the rules now. But perhaps it did cross his mind just briefly. Let's have a look at the steward's report. They decided that they ought to issue a report, and they did so very promptly and quickly after the race. And inquiry was held into the circumstances surrounding Rachel's ride on the winner, Gin on Lime, and they looked into why the horse continued in the race when the horse had made a very bad mistake at the penultimate fence. Blackmore and the veterinary officer were interviewed, recordings of the incident were viewed, so it was a thorough report, a thorough investigation. The veterinary officer stated that a post-race examination of Gin on Lime failed to reveal any abnormalities, and the stewards noted Blackmore's explanation that she felt the mare got to its feet quickly without any ill effects, and having trotted soundly away, she was satisfied that Gin on Lime was fit to continue in the race. This is the interesting bit, I think, the last sentence. She was advised that in similar circumstances, she should take more time to assess the welfare of her mount. Or perhaps that needs fleshing out a little bit. What exactly was she supposed to do in terms of assessing the welfare of her mount? Was she she couldn't get off? Was she just to trot round in a circle or trot in a straight line and give Gin and Lime a little bit more time before breaking into a canter? Possibly, but perhaps that needs fleshing out a little bit. And this is, of course, an incident that very, very rarely happens. I don't think I've ever seen two horses coming down to a fence, one falling and the other one basically falling, but the jockey being able to stay on board and go on to win the race. So it's interesting that she would say that, and I can see why they've done that, but it's not something that's going to occur, well, ever really. The pace was even. That's what we can pick out of this. It picked up from 5 furlongs out. 15.11 for furlong 16, 13.09 for 17, and My Drogo was motoring 12.84 when he came down. He looks like a bright prospect, doesn't he, My Drogo? I thought he jumped very well. He travelled strongly. I think he's a really good horse in the making. He probably would have won. I think he had the beating of Gin and Lime at the time. He travels well, and I think he's got a big future, and he's got a good record at Cheltenham as well. So I wouldn't worry the fact that he came down there. I think he is a festival horse going forward. And Rachel Blackmore, you know, whatever you think about whether she should have gone again on Gin and Lime, she was very, very good to sit. It was a great sit, and she was quite sympathetic on the horse thereafter. So I think plaudits should go to her for how she handled the situation. Staying novices next in the Ballymore novices hurdle. It was over 2 miles and 5 furlongs, and Off Yourrocco was the 7-4 favourite for the Gordon Elliott team. Gelino Bello was 2-1 for Paul Nicholls, and Blazing Carl for the Charles Burns operation was 9-2, having drifted out from 100 to 30 in current mood was 9-1, and it was the drifter Blazing Carl who prevailed here in very good style, and I think in the style of a smart staying novice in the future. Here he is, sat out in last place at this stage, and there's the runner-up, which was Fellini Bello in second place for the Paul Nicholls team. Let's see how this unfolded then. They're just coming down the hill here. The pace was even, I think. It wasn't mad. They didn't go very quick out in front. They're all in contention coming down the hill. But the winner came home quite strongly if you look at the course track sectionals. Final furlong of 14.23. It was much, much better than all of his rivals. Gelino Bello got home in 14.6, but that 14.23 really did seal the deal late on from Blazing Carl, who's getting into the affair towards the outside and then runs around a bit. He still looks a bit green. I mean, he's had plenty of starts under rules. He's running 5 bumpers, so he's quite experienced. But look there, he's just running around, getting down to the last, pricking his ears. He gives a knock and a bump to the runner-up, but now he knuckles down and he stays on very strongly in the closing stages, in the style of a horse who I think will stay 3 miles ultimately. I think there's going to be more to come from him when he's stepped up in trip. And the Albert Bartlett is the obvious race to think about for him at the festival going forward. I really did like that performance. He's a strong traveller who's only just doing enough out in front, and there could be a fair bit more to come from him. This head-on will show you him running around, and I think that's just a sign of greenness, really. Despite the number of runs he's had in bumpers, he's all over the place a little bit, but once he's asked to go and pick up, he fires that fast final furlong, which was much better than everything else at 14.23, and he pulls away from his rivals. Current Mood back in third place has run reasonably well. The rest beaten off and well beaten off. But this is a really nice staying prospect for Charles Burns. So let's sum up what we saw out there over the 2 miles 5 furlongs. I'm going to say that the winner stays very well. I think he's a strong stayer. I think he'd get 3 miles plus. And for me, he's a very smart prospect for Charles Burns, who plies his trade with lots of horses in Ireland, particularly handicappers, but he's got a good one here. I've highlighted that final furlong. It's just worth reiterating that he did come home quite strongly, 14.23. Now, that means nothing unless you put it in context with what everything else in the race did, and you go to the course track sectionals on the Racing TV website, and you'll see that only Gelino Bello could get anywhere near him, 14.6, and the rest came home very slowly. So he's now unbeaten in 2 over hurdles, this fella, and strong grounding. He ran in 5 bumpers, a couple of races over hurdles now, and I think it's fair to say that he's a better hurdler than he was a bumper horse, that the hurdles themselves doing him a favour. Albert Bartlett, I think that's a reasonable target for him. It's very early days, isn't it? But it's a legitimate target at this stage for the Charles Burns team. I think the runner-up's okay, you know. Giuliano Bello, probably quite a smart prospect overall. He is pretty good, I think, and he's advertised how good the winner is by finishing close enough to him. He wasn't beaten all that far, and I think he'll be winning very soon. But I think it's wrong to underestimate this winner, Blazing Cult. I think he's very good indeed. Paddy Bower Gold Cup time now. The Grade 3 on Saturday afternoon was the feature event at Cheltenham, and Protectorate was 11-2, well backed. 13-2 Al Dancer, Layla 7s, 9s Midnight Shadow and Paint the Dream, 11s, 12s, and bigger the rest of them. This was a very strongly run affair. There's the winner, Midnight Shadow, who was always prominent. Protectorate in the yellow colours there, and Layla's just almost in between them, really, towards the outside there, running for the Paul Nicholls team. Send them on the way. Cool Cody, last year's winners, in front at this stage as they come down the hill, and this was a very strongly run race. We've got a finishing speed percentage for you, which tells the tale, really. There you go, the winning time 2:25.9, but the finishing speed percentage 96.3. Oh, they finished very tired. They've crawled up the hill in this strongly run affair, finishing off much weaker than they ran the rest of the race. And Midnight Shadow, you can see visually, gets very tired in the closing stages. Makes a bad mistake, but survives that. Cool Cody is claimed by the second last. We saw that in play, didn't we, with My Drogo and Gin on Lime earlier on. And now Midnight Shadow's left clear, but he's going to get pretty tired out there. He gets in very close to that. He stumbles, but he finds a leg. Meanwhile, in behind, Protectorate's running on nicely, Layla running on nicely as well, trying to pick up the pieces in what was a strongly run race. I thought Protectorate in the yellow, the John Hales colours, shaped very well indeed. He finished off really nicely, and he nearly got there late on. Midnight Shadow effectively put the race to bed with a 12.3 17th furlong and a 12.87 18th, and then he got really, really tired, and the final furlong was slow motion for him. Course Track Sectionals got him doing the final furlong in 17.8 compared to Protectorate 15.8. So Midnight Shadow was on fumes out there. Protectorate 2 seconds quicker in the closing stages up the hill, but the Shadow had got far enough clear and was able to cling on. Protectorate, I think he could be a Ryanair horse, I really do. He travelled strongly and he finished off very well. He clearly goes well here. And I think the Ryanair could be the race for him, where of course he might well come up against the likes of Allaho, so he's going to have to improve to beat that horse, but he's shaped incredibly well. But it's well done to the Sue Smith team, the Midnight Shadow clinging on. Layla just drifting towards the rail, got a wide trip throughout, but ran on pretty well too, and Paul Nicholls will be pleased with that. So what did we see out there? Well, let's just highlight where the winner managed to secure this race. I think it was really the 17th furlong, firing a 12.3, then a 12.87. Then the mistake at the last where he lost momentum, then he got tired and he nearly got caught by Protectorate. The final furlong, absolute slow motion stuff from him, 17.8. There's no question about him idling. He wasn't idling at all. He was out on his feet. Here comes Protectorate, too late though, in second place. But he did finish off well, we have to highlight that. Final furlong 15.8, and the Ryanair, well, that may well be a target for the Skeltons. I think he's a pretty good horse, Protectorate. Layla too finished the race off pretty strongly. Career's definitely back on track. He used to go with loads of zest, Layla, in his early days with Kaylee Woolacott. He seems to have lost that sort of early zest, but he clearly retains plenty of ability, and there'll be races to be won with Layla for Paul Nicholls. Second last, well, it came to play again, didn't it? Claims another victim in Cool Cody, who I think he looked booked for second at worst. He might well have bustled the winner up, but he came tumbling down. Luckily, I think he got up all right. So that second last, it's a tricky old fence, that, isn't it? It comes up against them just as they turn into the home straight. I think it's that and the fact that they're getting tired, or they're starting to really race at that point, and those things combined mean that quite a few horses come down at that second last. It's generally due to tiredness more than where the fence is situated. Good winner, a nice winner for the Sue Smith team, and the runner-up, well, Protectorate must go on your Racing TV tracker. Let's go to Punchestown on Sunday afternoon and have a look at the Unibet Morgiana hurdle, grade 1 over 2 miles. Unfortunately, there was no Abracadabras, last year's winner. He was a non-runner, but Sharjah was sent off the 6-4 and quite well-backed favourite. Stable companion, Echoes in Rain, was a drifter. She opened up as favourite and went right out to 7-4. And there was money for Zana here as well, who was 5-2 from 100 to 30. 2 miles there, on ground described as good to yielding in places. Let's have a look and see how this race panned out. We'll have a look at the start first of all. And it is Sharjah who wins, who jumps off just in behind Zana here, who takes them along. So you've got your winner. You've got your runner-up, Zana here, and there's Echoes in Rain back in 3rd place. Start of the race was important for this horse. She's just too keen. She was on her seasonal reappearance, having won a Grade 1 as a novice when we last saw her. But she was too keen to do herself justice here, and she blew up, in my opinion. I think there's going to be miles better to come from her somewhere down the line, perhaps just against her own sex. But I think she's very talented. She's just doing a little bit too much in behind, in a race that was very steadily run. It was an absolute crawl fest out there, and it turned into a sprint in the home straight, and that really suits Sharjah, who can just sprint better than most hurdlers. Look at her reefing and pulling back in 3rd. She's doing way too much on her seasonal reappearance. Zana here is out in front here, and I think ultimately he's a bit disappointing, because he's got his own way out in front. He's able to do exactly what he wants out in front here, and the red cap pricking his ears, looking at his hurdle. He's jumping pretty well. He had every chance to go and win this race, but he was just too slow when they turned the taps on. He just didn't have enough pace, and I wonder whether a step up in trip for Zana here is the way to go for him, because he really should have got a little bit closer to Sharjah, you would have thought. But Sharjah's a quick horse. He's a strong traveller, and he's got a good turn of foot. They've just picked it up at this stage now. Zana here still bowling along in front, and there's not a lot that changes. A little slight mistake from Echoes in Rain back in 3rd place. It was thought that Willie Mullins, who's won 9 of the last 10 runnings of this race, might be targeting her at a champion hurdle. Well, she's going to have to settle better. Maybe she was just a bit fresh on her seasonal reappearance, but she's been keen in the past too. So that's a slight Achilles heel as far as she's concerned. They're beginning to pick it up now. The overall time, it was nothing flash, although the ground was on the easy side. They were slow by 21 seconds exactly. That's slower than the Racing Post standard. So it was a very steadily run race early on. Now Zana here just can't quicken against the rail. Red cap, he just finds nothing really. He keeps going. He just keeps going at one pace. Meanwhile, Sharjah pings that hurdle, and now he sprints. He's got a turn of foot. Look at Echoes in Rain. She's had enough. She's blown up, courtesy of her exertions earlier on in the piece. And Sharjah, under Patrick Mullins, runs out a ready enough winner from Zana here. I think it's a little bit disappointing, given that he got the run of the race. So where are we with the 2 mile division? Well, I don't think we learnt an awful lot from this. We know that Zana here was a good novice. Echoes in Rain was a good novice, and Sharjah's been around for a good while. He won this in 2018 as well. So we need some new shooters really in the 2 mile game. Honeysuckle currently favourite for the champion hurdle, and we just need some novices from last year to really step up and put themselves right in the frame and in the picture for the champion hurdle. And Sharjah, well, he'll never get an easier race to win than this. Zana here one paced. Echoes in Rain far too keen, didn't finish off, and it fell apart around his lugs, and he was able to just quicken up after the last, and it was game over pretty quickly for this Willie Mullins trained winner. Another Morgiana for the Mullins team. Let's have a look at what we saw out there then. Just the 3 runners, unfortunately. It's disappointing Abracadabras didn't turn up. Steadily run race, it just turned into a sprint. 21 seconds slower than standard. You expect it to be slower than standard given the ground, but it was pretty slow, and you could see visually that they crawled to at least halfway. It was a perfect setup for a cruising quicken horse, and that's exactly what Sharjah is. I mean, he's effective off a strong gallop as well, when he can be held up and dropped out, but here this was perfect for him to sprint away from his rivals at the last, and one of those rivals I think disappointing. Patrick Mullins on board, and Zana here, well, what do we make of him really? I think it was a good chance for him to win a decent Grade 1 out of novice company, but he couldn't do it, and perhaps he needs a step up in trip, but he got an easy lead out there. He had everything in his favour, and he couldn't deliver. Also, Echoes in Rain. Look, I think she remains with a ton of potential. She was very good last season. She was just too keen. You can just write this off and give her another chance, but she really is going to have to settle better and finish her races off better. Now she's taking on better company for the Willie Mullins team. I'm sure Willie Mullins will get her right in the near future, and she might be one for the Mayor's Hurdle at Cheltenham. That's maybe where they'll target her, keep her against her own sex. And finally, 2 mile hurdling division. I've mentioned this already, haven't I? It needs just a few new shooters, I think. It needs a few nice novices to really step up and challenge the likes of Honeysuckle. But Sharjah, he's tough, he's consistent, and he's quick, and he was certainly much quicker than his rivals in the Morgiana on Sunday afternoon. So that is the verdict for this week. A good look at the November meeting at Cheltenham. Some very good performances there, some controversial stuff as well, and a look at the Morgiana from Punchestown too. Hope you've enjoyed it all. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.